The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room Ambassador Linda Morrison had ever seen. It stretched upward like a cathedral, with seats carved into the walls for hundreds of alien species. Lights of every color floated in the air, each one representing a different civilization that had joined the Council over the past 10,000 years. Linda had dreamed of seeing humanity's light join them someday. Today, that dream died. She stood at the central podium with her small delegation behind her, Commander Kevin Walsh. Her military advisor kept his face blank, but Linda could see the tension in his shoulders. Dr. Maria Santos, their science attach, clutched her tablet so hard her knuckles had turned white. They had all worked so hard to get here. 5 years of negotiations. Endless compromises. Humanity had done everything the Council asked. It was not enough. Hi, Counselor Threnix of the Valori finished reading the official decision. He was a tall creature with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face and skin that shifted colors with his mood. Right now, his skin was a satisfied purple. The vote is final, Threnix announced. Humanity's application for full membership is denied. Your species is too young, too aggressive, and too unpredictable to be trusted with equal standing among the elder races. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Linda saw the Crix delegation, insectoid beings with sharp mandibles, clicking at each other, and what she had learned was laughter. The gaseous vents swirled in their containment fields, their colors bright with amusement. Even the Thesari, who had sponsored humanity's application, remained silent. Linda had expected rejection. She had prepared herself for disappointment. But Threnix was not finished. Furthermore, the High Counselor continued, the Council has decided that humanity must be contained for the safety of the galaxy. Your species will immediately cease all expansion beyond your current 17 star systems. You will reduce your military forces by 70%. You will submit to population controls to limit your breeding. Failure to comply will result in economic sanctions, trade embargoes, and if necessary, military intervention. The chamber fell silent. Linda felt the blood drain from her face. Behind her, Kevin Walsh made a small sound that might have been a growl. You want us to stop having children? Linda said slowly. You want us to destroy our own ships? You want us to become prisoners in our own space? We want you to become civilized, Threnix replied. Your species grows too fast, consumes too much, and builds too many weapons. You frighten the elder races. This is for your own protection as much as ours. Linda looked around the chamber. She saw no sympathy in any of the alien faces. The Crix ambassador made a gesture that she knew was deeply insulting. A group of Ven delegates had turned their backs entirely. These beings had smiled at her during diplomatic functions. They had accepted gifts from Earth. They had promised friendship. It had all been lies. May the first ask a question. Linda said, her voice steady, despite the rage building in her chest. Threnix waved a manipulator arm. You may. When your species first came to the stars, how were you treated? When the Crix began their expansion, did anyone try to stop them? When the Ven spread across 50 systems in a single generation, did the Council demand they submit to population controls? The chamber grew very quiet. Those situations were different, Threnix said, but his skin had shifted to an uncomfortable yellow. How? How were they different? The Valori conquered 6 species before joining the Council. The Crix nearly wiped out the Thesari in their early wars. The Ven consumed the resources of 100 worlds. But humanity, who has never attacked anyone who came to you asking for friendship, we are the ones who must be contained. You are young. You do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. I understand hypocrisy, Linda said. I understand fear. You are not worried that we are dangerous. You are worried that we might become your equals. And that terrifies you. Threnix's skin flashed red with anger. You forget your place, Ambassador. Humanity exists at the pleasure of this Council. One word from me, and your species will be isolated from all galactic trade. Your colonies will wither. Your people will starve. Do not test our patience. Linda Morrison had spent 30 years as a diplomat. She had learned to smile when she wanted to scream. She had learned to compromise when she wanted to fight. She had learned to accept insults with grace because that's what her species needed from her. But there was a limit. She turned to her delegation. Kevin Walsh met her eyes and gave a small nod. Maria Santos had stopped clutching her tablet. Her hands were steady now, and there was fire in her eyes. Linda turned back to face the council. I came here today hoping to build a bridge between humanity and the galaxy. I came here believing that if we showed enough patience, enough humility, enough willingness to work within your rules, we would eventually be accepted. I was wrong. She picked up her documents from the podium and placed them in her briefcase. The click of the latches echoed in the silent chamber. Humanity formally withdraws from these negotiations. We withdraw from all pending agreements with the Galactic Council. We reject your sanctions, your embargoes, and your demands. We will chart our own course among the stars. You cannot do this, Threnax sputtered. The protocols clearly state that withdrawal requires council approval. Then consider this our formal notice that we no longer recognize your protocols. Linda smiled. And there was nothing diplomatic about it. We asked for friendship. You offered chains. That was your choice. Now you will live with the consequences. She walked toward the exit, her delegation falling in behind her. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Someone called for security. At the door, Linda paused and looked back one last time. She found Threnax in the crowd, his 4 eyes wide with shock, his skin cycling through colors she had never seen before. Had a chance to make allies of us, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Remember that. When you are wondering what went wrong, remember that we came to you in peace, and you chose contempt. The doors closed behind her. In the corridor outside, Kevin Walsh let out a long breath. Well, that's done it. They'll never let us back now. Linda kept walking, her heels clicking against the alien floor. Good. We don't want back. We want forward. They'll come for us, Maria said quietly. You know they will. Yes. Linda's voice was calm, almost serene. They will. And when they do, they'll learn something important about humanity. What's that? Linda Morrison, the last human ambassador to the Galactic Council, allowed herself a small, grim smile. They'll learn that we are everything they feared we might become. Not because we wanted to be, but because they left us no other choice. Behind them, the great chamber of the Galactic Council descended into arguments that would last for days. None of them understood what had just happened. None of them realized that this moment would be remembered for 1,000 years. The humans walked on into an uncertain future, carrying with them the cold fire of a species that had been pushed too far. 6 months after the withdrawal, the Galactic Council was confident that humanity would break. The sanctions were working exactly as planned. Human trade ships were turned away from every port. Human merchants found their accounts frozen. Human colonies that depended on alien technology for medicine, for farming, for communication, suddenly found themselves alone. The Council expected panic. They expected riots in human streets. They expected desperate messages begging for forgiveness. They received silence. On the colony world of Green Harbor, a farmer named Dennis Parker stood in his field and watched an alien cargo ship turn away from orbit. The ship had been carrying fertilizer compounds that his crops needed. Without them, the Council experts predicted, the colony would face famine within 2 years. Dennis walked back to his farmhouse, where his daughter Patricia was working on something at the kitchen table. She had spread out old books, actual paper books that her grandfather had brought from Earth, along with soil samples and seed pods. They left, Dennis said. No fertilizer this season. Patricia looked up. She was 23 years old and had her mother's stubborn chin, I figured. That's why I've been reading Great-Grandpa's farming journals. Did you know that humans grew food for 10,000 years before we invented chemical fertilizers? That was different. The soil on Earth was made for our crops. So we'll make the soil work for our crops, too. Patricia held up a jar filled with dark, rich earth. I've been experimenting with composting techniques and nitrogen-fixing bacteria. It's slower than the alien stuff, but it works. And once we get it working, we'll never need their fertilizer again. Dennis stared at his daughter for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound that surprised them both. Your grandmother always said you were too stubborn to fail. I learned from watching you, Dad. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Engineers who had relied on alien components studied the devices and figured out how to build their own. Scientists who had been told their research was redundant discovered that their work was exactly what humanity needed. Doctors found old treatments that worked just as well as alien medicine. Teachers pulled out history books and taught children about the centuries before first contact, when humans had survived ice. Ages and plagues and world wars with nothing but their own determination. On Earth, President Catherine Reyes called an emergency meeting of her cabinet. The room was filled with worried faces. Economic reports showed the damage from the sanctions. Military assessments warned of potential council aggression. Intelligence briefings painted a grim picture of alien preparations. But when the reports were finished, the president did not look worried. She looked thoughtful. How long can we survive without alien trade? She asked her economic advisor, a tired man named Howard Grant, shook his head. In theory, indefinitely. We have all the resources we need within our own systems. But the transition will be painful. Shortages, unemployment. It could take years to rebuild our supply chains. Years, the president repeated. Not forever. Years. Yes, ma'am. Humans are remarkably adaptable. We always have been. Catherine Reyes stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Washington spread out before her, a mix of old and new buildings that had survived 3 centuries of change. The council thinks we're children, she said. They think we'll come crawling back when things get hard. They don't understand us at all. What do you want us to do, ma'am? The president turned back to her cabinet. Her eyes were hard, but her voice was calm. I want us to become everything they're afraid of. Not to attack them, not to conquer them, but to become so strong that they can never threaten us again. I want factories running day and night. I want research programs in every university. I want our people to remember who we are and what we're capable of. She paused, letting her words sink in. And I want it done quietly. The council is watching us, waiting for signs of military buildup. So we won't give them what they're looking for. We'll build our strength in places they're not watching. Civilian shipyards, private companies, university laboratories. When they finally realize what we've done, it will be too late. In the orbital shipyards above Mars, Chief Engineer Samuel Ortiz received new orders that made him smile. For years, he had been building cargo ships according to council specifications. Slow, safe, unremarkable ships that alien inspectors approved without question. Now he was building something different. The blueprints came from a dozen sources. Military historians who had studied ancient Earth warfare, physicists who had theories about weapons the council had declared impossible, engineers who had always known their cargo ships could be something more. It doesn't look like much, his assistant Nancy Liu said, studying the design. From the outside, it just looks like another freighter. That's the point, Samuel replied. The council thinks they know what human ships can do. They've been inspecting our designs for 2 centuries. They think we're harmless. He pulled up a hidden layer of the blueprints. Nancy's eyes went wide. Those weapon systems. I've never seen anything like them. Neither has anyone else. And by the time the council figures out what we've built, we'll have 100 of these ships. Maybe more. Nancy was quiet for a moment. Are we really going to war? Samuel looked out the viewport at the red planet below. He thought about his children, who had grown up believing that humanity's future depended on alien approval. He thought about the insults, the rejections, the endless compromises that had led nowhere. I hope not, he said finally. But hope isn't a strategy. The council has made it clear that they see us as a threat to be contained. We can't change their minds with words, so we'll change their minds with strength. And if that doesn't work, he shrugged, then at least we'll go down fighting. Meanwhile, in the great chambers of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council celebrated. The sanctions were working. Human economic indicators were falling. Victory seemed certain. Only Ambassador Kethron of the Thessaly remained troubled. The ancient being had studied humans longer than anyone. They had seen something in the young species that others missed. "You are all making a terrible mistake," Kethron warned the council. "Humans do not break under pressure. They adapt. They overcome. They become stronger." High Counselor Thranix dismissed the warning with a wave. "They are isolated and alone. What could they possibly do?" Kethron's bioluminescent skin flickered with colors that meant deep worry. "That is exactly what I am afraid to find out." In the silence of space, human ships continued their quiet work. Factories hummed. Scientists experimented. Soldiers trained. And slowly, steadily, species that had been dismissed as too young and too weak began to transform itself into something the galaxy had never seen before. The storm was coming. The Council just didn't know it yet. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the silence finally broke. But not in the way anyone expected. The Crix Collective had been watching the human colony of New Montana with hungry eyes for decades. The world was rich in rare minerals that the Crix needed for their ships. When humanity was part of the Council's sphere, the Crix could not touch it. Now with the humans isolated and embargoed, the insectoid species saw their chance. Admiral Krethnak commanded the peacekeeping fleet personally. 47 warships, veterans of a dozen campaigns, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Montana system. The Admiral expected to find a broken colony, desperate for rescue, willing to accept Crix protection in exchange for their minerals. Instead, the Admiral found Commander Gregory Adams waiting for him. Gregory was 42 years old and had spent his entire career being told that humans would never be warriors. The Council had limited human military forces to defensive patrols. Human officers were trained to avoid conflict, to retreat, to call for alien peacekeepers if trouble arose. Gregory had followed those rules for 20 years. He was done following rules. Commander, his tactical officer, reported. "The Crix fleet is demanding our immediate surrender. They say they're here to restore order and protect the civilian population." Gregory stood on the bridge of the HDF Resilience, surrounded by officers who had trained in secret for this moment. Through the view screen, he could see the Crix formation, an impressive display of military might that would have terrified any sensible commander. Gregory smiled. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. 16, sir. Officially classified as armed patrol vessels. And unofficially. The tactical officer allowed himself a small grin. "Unofficially, sir, we have 16 of the most advanced warships ever built by human hands." Gregory nodded. "Send to all ships. Weapons free. Show them what we've been hiding." What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The Crix fleet advanced in their standard battle formation. Confident in their superiority, they had fought dozens of species over thousands of years. They knew exactly how inferior races fought. They knew exactly how to crush them. They did not know how to fight humans. Gregory's ships did not behave like any vessels the Crix had ever seen. They moved in patterns that seemed chaotic, but were actually precisely coordinated. They fired weapons that bent space itself, sending Crix ships tumbling out of formation. They targeted engines and weapons with surgical precision, recruiting enemy vessels without destroying them, and through it all, the human crews remained calm. Their voices on the communication channels were professional, almost bored. They called out targets and acknowledged. It's like they were running a training exercise. "Admiral." Yeah. Krethnak watched his fleet fall apart and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "All ships. Retreat," he ordered, his mandibles clicking frantically. "Fall back to rally point 7. But there was no falling back. Human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, cutting off escape routes, herding the Crix vessels into killing zones. In less than 4 hours, 31 Crix warships had been destroyed, and 15 more disabled. The humans had lost 2 ships. The Admiral's flagship, crippled and burning, limped toward the edge of the system. Gregory could have destroyed it easily. Instead, he opened a communication channel. "Admiral Krethnak, this is Commander Gregory Adams of the Human Defense Force. You came to our world uninvited. You demanded our surrender. You learned something today about humanity that your council never understood? The Krix Admiral stared at the human face on his screen. The creature looked so small, so soft, so fragile. How could such beings fight like demons? What did we learn? Krethnok asked, his translator struggling to convey his shock. You learned that we were never weak. We were patient. There's a difference. Gregory leaned forward. Go home, Admiral. Tell your council what happened here. Tell them that humanity is done being pushed around. And tell them that if anyone else comes to our worlds with weapons, they'll find the same welcome you did. The Krix flagship jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying with it recordings that would change the galaxy forever. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Threnax watched the battle footage in stunned silence. His four eyes could not believe what they were seeing. Human ships moving like nothing in Council records. Weapons that should not exist, according to Council science. And the voices, those terrible calm voices, coordinating destruction with the ease of a species born for war. This is impossible, Threnax whispered. Our intelligence said they had no military capability. The intelligence director, a Ven named Sorrow of Mourning, flickered with embarrassment. High Counselor, it appears we were deceived. The humans built their forces in ways we did not think to monitor. Civilian shipyards. University research. Private manufacturing. They created a navy while pretending to build cargo ships. How did we miss this? Because we were not looking, High Counselor. We assumed humans were exactly what they appeared to be. We never considered that they might be hiding their true capabilities. Threnix's skin shifted through colors of rage, fear, and finally, a sickly yellow of uncertainty. Contact Ambassador Morrison. Request immediate negotiations. High Counselor, she has refused all communication for the past year. Then try again, and again. We must speak with the humans before this gets worse. But across human space, the news of New Montana was spreading. Families gathered around communication screens to watch the footage. Workers stopped in factories to share the story. Children learned that the aliens, who had dismissed their species, were not as powerful as everyone believed. President Catherine Reyes addressed humanity from the steps of the Global Assembly, building on Earth. Billions. Watched across 17 worlds. 1 year ago, the Galactic Council told us we were too young, too weak, and too dangerous to be trusted with our own future. They demanded we reduce ourselves, limit our growth, and accept their control. We refused. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Today, the Krix Collective learned the cost of underestimating humanity. We did not seek this battle. We do not seek war, but we will not be conquered. We will not be contained. We will not bow to any power that denies our right to exist as a free people. The president looked directly into the camera, and billions of humans looked back at her. To the Galactic Council, I say this: you had your chance for peace. You chose contempt instead. Now you will see what humanity can do when we stop asking for permission. In the years that followed, those words would be carved into monuments on a dozen worlds. They would be taught to children as the moment humanity stopped being a footnote in galactic history and started writing their own story. But for now, they were simply the truth, spoken by a leader who understood that her species had crossed a line from which there was no return. The war had begun, and humanity intended to win. 2 years into the war, the Galactic Council was learning lessons it had never expected to learn. Each lesson was written in the wreckage of their fleets and the ruins of their confidence. The Valori hegemony, proud masters of space for 8,000 years, decided to end the conflict with overwhelming force. They gathered 300 warships, the largest fleet assembled in a century, and set course for Earth itself. High Admiral Sarath commanded the armada personally, confident that the destruction of humanity's homeworld would break their spirit forever. The fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system and stopped. What they saw made even the Admiral's 4 eyes widen with disbelief. Earth's solar system had been transformed into a fortress. Defense platforms orbited every major planet. their weapons bristling with technology the Valori did not recognize. Minefields stretched across every approach route, invisible until triggered, deadly beyond measure. And waiting at the center of it all was the human home fleet. 200 ships faced the Valori armada. They were smaller than the alien vessels, less elegant in design, but Admiral Victor Reyes, who commanded from the bridge of the HDF Constitution, knew something the Valori did not. Size meant nothing. Experience meant nothing. Numbers meant nothing. Only will mattered, and humans had will to spare. "Admiral Sarath is hailing us," the communications officer reported. "He's demanding our surrender." Victor Reyes was 61 years old. He had grandchildren on Earth, on Mars, on half a dozen colony worlds. He had spent his entire career preparing for a battle that everyone told him would never come. Now it was here. "Tell the Admiral," Victor said calmly, "that humanity does not surrender. Not today. Not ever." The Battle of Earth lasted 6 days. It would be remembered as the turning point of the war, the moment when the galaxy finally understood what humanity truly was. The Valori fought with the tactics that had won them 100 victories. They formed battle lines. They executed coordinated attacks. They followed the rules of warfare that had served them for millennia. The humans broke every rule. Their ships scattered and regrouped in patterns. It seemed random, but were actually calculated to perfection. They used the planets and moons as shields, as weapons, as traps. They attacked and retreated and attacked again, wearing down the Valori formation piece by piece. On the 3rd day, Admiral Sarath realized he was losing. On the 4th day, he tried to retreat. On the 5th day, the retreat became a rout. When the battle ended, the Valori had lost 230 ships. The humans had lost 53. Earth remained untouched. Its billions of inhabitants, watching the sky as their defenders drove the aliens back into the darkness between stars. On Nexus Prime, the council chamber descended into chaos. "This is your fault," the Krix representatives shouted at the Valori delegates. "You promised a quick victory. You started this war." The Valori shot back. "Your attack on New Montana began this disaster. The sanctions were supposed to break them." The Ven delegates swirled with angry colors. Who recommended sanctions? Who said humans would surrender? Thrinax, the High Counselor who had dismissed humanity so confidently 2 years ago, sat in silence. His skin had turned a gray color that meant exhaustion and despair. His political position was collapsing. His species was being blamed for the greatest military disaster in Council history. "We must commit more forces," someone demanded. "We must crush the humans before they grow stronger." "With what forces?" Another voice replied. "We have already lost more ships in 2 years than in the previous century. Human production outpaces ours 10 to 1. Every month, their fleet grows while ours shrinks." Ambassador Kethron of the Thesari rose to speak. The ancient being's lights flickered with a complex pattern that meant profound sadness. "I warned this council. Before the first sanction, before the first shot, I warned you that humans were not what you believed them to be. You did not listen. You were too proud, too certain of your own superiority. And now we are all paying the price." "What would you have us do?" Thrinax asked weakly. "Surrender. I would have you do what you should have done from the beginning. Treat humans with respect. Acknowledge them as equals. Offer genuine peace, not the false peace of domination. They will never accept, not after what we have done." Kethron's lights dimmed. "Perhaps not, but we must try. Because if we do not, this war will continue until one side or the other is destroyed. And I am no longer certain which side that will be." In the human colony of Riverside, Governor Margaret Walsh walked through streets that had been bombed 3 times and rebuilt 3 times. The scars of orbital bombardment marked the buildings, but the people had not given up. They never gave up. Her aide Peter Huang matched her pace, reading from a tablet. "Governor, intelligence reports indicate the council is fracturing. Several member races are seeking separate peace agreements. We won't accept them." "Not yet? Is that wise? We're winning, but the costs are enormous. Every battle takes lives we can't replace. Margaret stopped walking. She looked at the sky, where invisible defense platforms stood ready to protect her world. Peter, do you know why we're winning this war? It's not because our ships are better or our weapons are stronger. It's because every human who fights knows exactly why they're fighting. The Council started this war because they were afraid of what we might become. Now they're afraid of what we are. She resumed walking. We'll make peace when the Council is ready to treat us as equals. Real equals. Not the kind they pretended to offer before. Until then, we fight. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. But because surrender was never an option. Across human space, the war continued. Human fleets struck at military targets throughout Council territory. They did not bomb cities or kill civilians. They did not seek to conquer alien worlds. They simply demonstrated again and again that they could not be stopped. Admiral Lisa Nakamura, commanding the 3rd Strike Fleet, captured a Valori supply station and took its crew prisoner. Among them was a senior officer who demanded to know what the humans wanted. We want to be left alone, Lisa told him. We came to your council, asking for friendship. You gave us contempt. We asked for respect. You gave us demands. Everything that's happened since then is because you couldn't accept that we might be your equals. You could destroy us, the officer said. Your weapons, your tactics, your will to fight. You could end the hegemony if you wanted. Lisa nodded slowly. Yes, we probably could. But we won't, because that's not who we are. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it without asking permission. She left the officer to think about that. In the silence of his cell, he began to understand something that his leaders had not. The humans were not fighting for conquest or glory or revenge. They were fighting for something far more dangerous. They were fighting for freedom, and they would never stop. 3 years after humanity walked out of the Galactic Council, the Council came to humanity, not with demands this time, not with threats. They came with something they had never offered before: humility. The negotiations took place on a space station in neutral territory, far from any world claimed by either side. Ambassador Linda Morrison led the human delegation, the same woman who had walked out of the council chamber 3 years ago. Her hair was grayer now, her face more lined, but her eyes were the same, sharp, determined. Unafraid, across the table sat what remained of the council's leadership. High Counselor Threnax was gone, removed from office after the disasters of the war. His replacement was a younger Valori named Sarath, whose 4 eyes held something Threnax has never had: genuine respect. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Sarath began. His skin was a neutral blue, carefully controlled. We know that after everything that has happened, you had every reason to refuse. Linda nodded, but said nothing. She had learned the value of silence in negotiations. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I wish to express our profound regret, Sarath continued. We underestimated your species. We disrespected you. We attempted to control a people who had offered us only friendship. The consequences of our arrogance have been devastating for everyone. Round the table, other council representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Crick's ambassador, a new one since the previous had been removed in disgrace, clicked his mandibles softly. The Vendelegate swirled with muted colors of shame. Even the ancient Thessery, whose warnings had been ignored, seemed somber. We are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, Sarath said. With all rights and privileges that position holds, your representatives will have equal voting power. Your ships will have free passage through all council space. All sanctions will be lifted. All embargoes will end. All restrictions on your expansion will be removed. Linda listened carefully, her expression revealing nothing. In return, Sarath continued, we ask only for peace, an end to hostilities, a chance to rebuild what has been broken. For a long moment, Linda did not speak. The council delegates leaned forward, waiting for her response. Behind her, the human delegation remained silent, trusting their ambassador to speak for them. Finally, Linda stood. She walked to the viewport that looked out on the endless stars. Somewhere out there were the 17 worlds of human space. Worlds that had been threatened and attacked and defended with blood and sacrifice. Somewhere out there were the graves of humans who had died because the Council could not accept their right to exist. 3 years ago, Linda said quietly, we would have accepted this offer with gratitude. We would have seen it as everything we had worked for. Full membership. Equal standing. Recognition. She turned back to face the Council. But 3 years ago, we did not know what we were capable of. We did not know our own strength. We came to you as children asking for approval from their elders. We were wrong to do that. Not because approval was not worth having, but because we should never have needed it in the first place. Sarath's skin flickered with uncertainty. What are you saying, Ambassador? I'm saying that we don't want your council's seat. We don't want to be part of an organization that treated us the way you did. Not because we're angry, though we have every right to be, but because we've learned something about ourselves that we didn't know before. Linda walked back to the table and stood before the assembled delegates. We learned that we don't need your approval. We don't need your technology or your trade or your protection. We have everything we need within ourselves. Your sanctions were supposed to break us, but they made us stronger. Your attacks were supposed to crush us, but they made us united. Your contempt was supposed to teach us our place, but it taught us that we had no place among people who could not see our worth. Then what do you want? Sarath asked. If not membership, what? Linda smiled, and for the first time, it was a genuine smile. We want to be neighbors, not members, not allies. Neighbors. We will trade with species who want to trade. We will cooperate with those who want to cooperate. We will defend ourselves against anyone who threatens us, and we will extend a hand of friendship to any species, young or old, that approaches us with genuine respect. Letting her words sink in other words. We want exactly what we asked for from the beginning. The right to exist on our own terms, the right to grow and change and become whatever we are meant to be without asking permission from anyone. The negotiations continued for many days after that. The details were complicated, involving borders and trade routes and diplomatic protocols. But the fundamental agreement was simple. Humanity would go its own way, and the Council would let them. On the final day, when the treaty was ready to be signed, Ambassador Kethron of the Thessari approached Linda privately. The ancient being's lights flickered with complex emotions. I wish to apologize, Kethron said. I sponsored your application for membership. I believed it would lead to good things for your species. I was wrong. You weren't wrong, Linda replied. You were trying to help. The Council was wrong, not you. Should have done more. I should have fought harder for your acceptance. Linda shook her head. Catherine, if the Council had accepted us 3 years ago, we would never have discovered what we were truly capable of. We would have spent centuries trying to prove ourselves worthy of your approval. Instead, we learned to approve of ourselves. That's worth more than any council seat. Catherine's lights brightened with something like understanding. Then perhaps something good came from this tragedy after all. Perhaps. Linda looked out at the stars one last time. Or perhaps this was always going to happen, one way or another. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Your council tried to break us, and instead, you forged us into something new, something dangerous. Catherine asked. Something free, Linda corrected, which might be the same thing from a certain point of view. The treaty was signed that evening. Human representatives and council delegates stood together for the official images. But everyone knew that this was not a joining of equals. This was an acknowledgement that the galaxy had changed, and that the young species from a small blue world had changed it. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to adjust to the new reality. Human ships traveled freely through space that had once been forbidden to them. Human traders established new routes to species who had never dealt with humanity before. Human explorers pushed beyond the known borders, seeking new worlds to settle and new mysteries to solve. And the Galactic Council, humbled for the first time in 10,000 years, watched and wondered what they had unleashed upon the stars, on Earth. President Catherine Reyes addressed her people one final time before leaving office. She was older now, tired from years of war and worry, but her voice was strong. "We set out to find our place among the stars," she said. "We thought that place would be given to us by the elder races, earned through patience and humility. We were wrong. Our place in the galaxy was never going to be given. It had to be claimed." She smiled at the cameras, at the billions of humans watching across space. "We are no longer the children of the galaxy. We are its newest voice, speaking our own truth in our own way. The future is ours too, right? And no one will ever take that from us again." Somewhere in the darkness between stars, a human ship jumped to faster than light travel, carrying explorers toward unknown horizons. Behind them, 17 worlds glittered with the lights of civilization. Ahead of them, the universe waited. Humanity had come to the stars seeking acceptance. They had found something better. They had found themselves.